Hello and welcome to the third episode of Looking at the Witch Farm with Becky.
Hello.
And with this episode called The Old Woman. But before we get into it, I just want to mention that we do have a second channel called Talking Paranormal. You might want to check it out. We do like chats like this with people in and around the paranormal field. So if that interests you, please take a look. Anyway, so Bex, episode 3 starts off talking about Liz phones to get a priest in purple robes who does the holy water thing, comes in, sprays it about, and it does feel better temporarily for hours. That's all.
I am always really on edge about this because I just think if there is something demonic or if there is even somebody or a spirit in the home of a different religion, you're going to piss it off.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it is more likely going to make things worse.
Yeah. I mean, I know they don't necessarily charge, although we investigated a case in Riddlesden near us, and the woman said that she'd had a priest in 20 times, right? And he'd charged 200 quid every time. Yeah.
What?
He'd made that amount of money. What?
So, was he a priest?
A priest, yeah.
Definitely.
That's what she said.
Oh my goodness, that's terrible.
I'd be a priest for a day for that.
I would. That's awful. Yeah. He's obviously completely taken advantage.
Yeah.
And it didn't work, I assume.
Didn't work. Yeah.
So, I'm always funny about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it advertised, you know, I'll come and sort your house out for X amount of money, and it's like, why would you?
No.
That's terrible.
No.
So, it turns out Marion Holborn is the mother of the landlord, Phil. So is that the woman in the slippers who we spoke about? We realised there was a spirit in slippers and a spirit in heavy boots, which I am actually going to include now, the heavy footsteps from York.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing but respect. We want to leave here.
What was that?
That is a slow walk up the stairs. Why would you walk up there?
That was in this room. That was
that
the
wall
kitchen.
right there.
What was that? What was that?
There's no stairs there. So yeah, when those footsteps came in that house we were in, I imagine it was like that, heavy, loud.
Oh my gosh, it was clear as day.
Yeah, exactly. And that wall had nothing on the other side of that wall. It was a rooftop.
No, it was clear as day, and it was slow, menacing, exactly how you would have expected.
Yeah. and I mean, we thought it was cool, but imagine if you're not investigators, that just happens in your house, you would shit yourself.
Oh, it'd be awful. In your house, it'd be awful.
So it makes sense that maybe Phil did possibly live there. I've never actually got to the bottom of that, whether he just owned it and lent it out. But it's a big place to just buy and not have lived in, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, so she lived there, didn't she? Marion lived there, but then did that house get handed down to Phil, who already had a house, and he was like, well, I'm selling it, I'll just let it out.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe he never lived there, even if as a child or something, whether it's a family home, I don't know. But so February 1990, and walking home with Ben is Liz. Turns out Bill's not back, and she glances up and sees a figure of an old woman in the window.
She can literally, she knows exactly what she's wearing, cardigan. She can picture her hair and her face. It wasn't just a glance, was it? She didn't see her out the corner of her eye.
Yeah.
She stared. They looked at each other.
I would only counter that with a lot of photos I see on Facebook of faces in the window, and it isn't. It's just like reflection. The window isn't perfectly. It's all wonkied, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like shadow of trees and darkness and light play.
It's hard to know how clear she saw it, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's hard to know, was the light behind her? Was the sun behind the house? It's hard to picture, and that's what exactly a skeptic would say, isn't it? Or anybody who didn't quite believe might say, well, it's been a reflection, which it absolutely could have been.
Yeah. So then Bill comes home a bit beard up and seems to accuse Liz, the skeptic, of seeing things. And sort of a shift in belief, you know, because he was all like, I just heard footsteps while having a pee. And then, yeah, turns it on her like, you probably imagined it. I think that was just a defense mechanism.
I say it's denial. I feel like that's most people would jump to that, to be like, no, it's not happening. It's not real.
Yeah. And Liz is like, she had grey hair, she had a cardigan on. Cardigan's pretty specific, isn't it?
This is what I mean. Like it wasn't just I saw an outline of a lady. It was, I can tell you exactly what she was wearing, what her hair was like.
Yeah.
You know? So it seems like she saw a woman.
Yeah.
And she went in, didn't she? She went in the house and searched every room.
Yeah.
To try and find her.
Yeah. I don't know which one says, but somebody said ghosts haunt where they died, right? And I'm like, not necessarily.
Oh no, not necessarily.
They don't not like stuck to that room where they died. They can. We find them travelling all over. Yes, it's one of their visitation points.
And you do tend to get, you do find sometimes, don't you, if somebody's died, you know, tragically or quickly, that it maybe the activity is focused around a particular point in the house.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, or the location, but it doesn't mean that they're stuck in that one space.
No. Then we cut to Evelyn, and she says how rare it is to see a fully formed figure. Because you think about people who fade away, the shadows.
Yeah.
You know, that is fairly common, isn't it? Some sort of amorphous shape.
Mm-hmm.
And Kieran goes on to talk about sleep deprivation again. You know, I don't think Kieran is as skeptical as he portrays. I think Danny's like, you are playing the skeptic.
Right.
And Evelyn, you are you know what I mean? I think because Kieran does do ghost hunts a lot. He wouldn't bother if he was skeptical.
If he thought there is no such thing, he wouldn't waste his time.
No. Yeah, he talks about hallucinations again through tiredness, which I kind of get, but I'm sure I mentioned before that I have been very tired in the past and I don't hallucinate when I'm tired.
And this is the thing, I can only go by my past experience, and I'm sure there are some people who maybe do hallucinate when they're tired, but you have to be bloody tired to be hallucinating, because she's caring for a child. She's got to be aware of her surroundings. She's got to be, fit to be in charge of that child. She's a young child at this point, so she's probably got eyes in the back of her head. She's probably got what's going on. It's not like she's half asleep. She is aware of her surroundings. So, yeah, as I say, I've never hallucinated, and I sleep till she was 4. So
yeah. So she's talking to someone else in town, and looking for ghosts is kind of the thing, there's an older exorcism done in the 60s, and she's like, "What? What do you mean?" And the house, Marion from that time told the vicar to come with the whole choir.
Yes, she's the talk of the town, really, isn't she? Let's be honest. Everybody knows.
Apparently, she's a very imposing lady. Obviously, click your fingers, get to my house.
Yeah.
Because this woman, they weren't going to mess about. Another strong woman, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she sounds like an imposing figure. That's fair enough. So maybe imposing in life and still in death, but we'll get onto that. Then Bill is worried about his son, about teenage stresses. Bill's mum, Lawrence's grandma, comes, and Lawrence spits in her face, which is very far, no matter whether he's did it on purpose or spiritual possession.
Yeah, I mean, you would worry about your son if he did that, whether he was possessed or not.
Yeah.
I think they were worried about his behaviour, weren't they? And that he was different, a bit different, and more like sort of kept himself to himself, and he seemed moody. And to be honest, like, that could just be teenagers. You could just put that down to hormones. You could, if you were really trying, if you ignored everything else, you could just put it down to a teenager who was having a hard time at school or wherever and was pissed off. That's how I would put it down. If I was a skeptic, I'd be like, well, this how it happens.
When you were a baby, I was like 17, going on 18. And when you would cry through the night and interrupt my teenage sleep,
How dare I?
and your mum and dad would not go to your bedroom and calm you down, because their advice had been just let her cry herself to sleep.
Controlled crying.
In the meantime, I've got work in the morning. I'm selfish as hell. I remember being really annoyed at you. So much that I would grab something and I would throw it across the room in anger in the middle of the night, like, go do something about that child. I mean, that is so out of character for me. That I don't recognise that person, but
no. But I only have experience of my own child.
yeah,
I've been in many situations where she would not stop crying, and I even said to Mum, I was like, Mum, I totally see how people lock the kids under the stairs. Like, you obviously you would never do anything to hurt. You feel angry.
Yeah.
And I can see if he's sleep deprived and hormones and hit time at school or college or wherever he is.
Yeah.
Maybe grandma said something to really piss him off. So I'm not in it, but
Yeah, they talk about vocal shifts, and then although the audio of the drama does have very demonic-y twists, that isn't real audio. That's for dramatic effect. We don't exactly know how much he changed, but I was a different person when I was that age. Horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And again, you can talk about, when born. I can't remember how old Lawrence is at this point.
I don't know.
Early teen, but you've got to remember, like, the voice breaks and
true.
A lot could be down to that, to growing into a sort of an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, but you wouldn't spit. I would never spat in someone's face.
It's terrible, don't get me wrong, it's awful. Yeah. But can you absolutely say, right, yeah, well, he was possessed?
No, you can't say that, can you?
No.
And in our experience, although we've not directly had possession, I think it's agreed that you can't just click your fingers and be possessed. It takes a long time to wear you down.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I mean, again, you could argue maybe he has been worn down and worn down and worn down over the months of living there, and maybe that's a breaking point. And you don't know, but it just seems far-fetched to me.
Yeah.
But you just never know. I wasn't living there, so I don't know.
No, then Danny undertakes Kieran's experiment, watching 36 hours of horror films. Now, the whole psychomantium thing I've seen on documentaries in like the 90s when I watched stuff like there was things like Omnibus and Horizon, these scientific programs. And what they would do is they would induce, like through sound and vibration and frequency, they would make your brain shake in a way that you would hallucinate weird shit. You know what I mean?
Sounds awful.
Yeah, but it's good because it proves that you can make people see ghosts with a machine by triggering the brain. That's what they say about high EMF in your house, around the fuse box, wherever. If you get those pylons in your back garden, you need to be testing that you're not always in such a high radiation, because it can alter your brain and make you feel sick and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Some people are really sensitive to EMF and some people are just regular.
Yeah. I think that for me, for that experiment, watching the horror films, if they'd have then said to him, right, now put your light on in your hotel room sit in front of a mirror in the light, in the daylight, and look into that mirror for half an hour and you'll see a ghost, and he'd seen a ghost in those circumstances, I would have thought, oh, wow, okay, that's impressive. To me, forget the horror films for a minute, bearing in mind he's had 36 hours of horror drilled into his brain. He's absolutely exhausted. He's had no sleep for a day and a half. He's sat in front of the mirror in dim, flickering light.
Yeah.
So you can hardly see anything anyway. He's got a candle behind him. And he then obviously hallucinates and sees, I mean, he sounds terrified on the podcast.
Yeah, he does.
But, and don't get me wrong, that's terrifying. And yes, it's an experiment. However, I don't know how much weight that adds to this case, because at no stage yet that I've heard has Liz or Bill seen a spirit in where they've had absolutely no sleep, where it's been dark. So far, Liz has actually seen it in broad daylight. They have. Oh, I feel like there isn't much weight that it can add to this particular this particular case at the moment.
Yeah, I get you there. Because the whole candle and mirror thing, it's candle scrying, isn't it? It's crystal ball reading. It's things that we've done as a team. And yes, we've had experiences where, yes, you do see shapes change because your eyes in dim light are trying to focus and refocus. Your brain is making images, making sense out of random images.
It's
and
like clouds. Looking at clouds.
Exactly. Looking at clouds, yeah.
You're always going to see something eventually when you're looking for it.
Yeah. And he does see a huge dark figure coming behind him.
Yeah, and he sounds terrified.
Yeah.
And he says it's the scariest thing that's ever happened to him in his life.
Yeah.
And listening to it, I was like, oh my God, that sounds awful.
Yeah.
Forget horror films, just doing that in the dark room would be awful.
Yeah. But then Si, when we made him sit in front of a mirror with a candle, he said, I'm just seeing my face change constantly in like 30, 40 different faces. And he sat down going, this will not work. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so he did. And he hadn't had 36 hours of no sleep.
No, he just sat down for an hour.
Yeah.
So you can trick the brain, basically. Yeah. Early spring 1990, there's an old woman sat in an armchair in the bedroom, looking at Ben and watching him. She looks sad. Protection, possibly. That's what they get the vibe of. Maybe she is the good one looking out for the kid because she knows there's something else, up there.
I mean,
maybe.
Yeah, and she does say, I'm sure she says that's the same woman.
Yeah, she does. She sees it in a photo and says, we know it's Marion. She goes, that's the woman I saw sat there.
Right, and she says she looks sad. So this is a full-blown woman sat in front of her as she walks through the room. So it's a reflection. It's it looks like a proper person. Again, to me, hallucinate that's pretty intense.
No. Yeah, that's not. She seems to be like, I saw her. I can recognise her from a photo. That's how good she got a look at her.
Yeah, and I mean, protection or not, that's still bloody creepy.
Oh, it's creepy for sure. But
you'd rather the protection be there than not.
Yeah. So that's Oh, Bethan was the historian who showed the photo of Marion. Yeah. That was pretty much episode 3. The update after it talked about anti-English sentiment. Was the farmer Wynne trying to basically say the house was haunted when it wasn't, scare him off? I don't hold much sway with that. They talked about, had the animals been poisoned by the locals?
We said this, didn't we? The animals, again, you can't prove anything. It could have been weed killer. It could have been anything. For them all to die, it's either, I think, there's something going on that's weird, or it's a natural thing that's happened that's either poison or, there's something going on. Whether they're drinking from water that's poison or...
Yeah. Contaminated in somewhere, yeah.
And
then Danny and Liz pull up and they notice flies landing on them, and reminds them of fly infestations, like from cases like the Amityville. I thought the Amityville had been outed and admitted to be completely fake.
Really?
That was my standpoint on it, but none of that were mentioned. So I'm going to hold my judgment on that. But I thought it had been mumbled and everyone had gone, oh yeah, the family had admitted it were, fake. But maybe I'm wrong there. So I'm not saying it as a statement.
We'll have to do some research on that and have a look.
Yeah. So yeah, Danny's surprised that flies on a farmland land on his car. It's like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, when we investigate outside in cemeteries,
Oh God.
in farmland, you are absolutely covered in midges and flies because
Well,
you're warm-blooded.
You've literally had to get everybody in the back of a van, a big van, because it was so bad.
So bad, yeah. Yeah, when we're talking about doing outside, we always say midges. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Is it just right?
Yeah.
So then the topic of can you visit the house nowadays is brought up, and no, you're not allowed because a family lives there at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, and they refuse to talk to the programme because you don't want the attention, do you? It's like, even if it is haunted, we don't need national media flooding us.
Interesting to know, though, wouldn't it, if there is stuff going on?
But that family will be tuning in to the episodes. It's about your house.
I'm not joking. I could not listen to that. I would be so. If there was nothing happening in the house, definitely not. If there was stuff going on, I'd probably like, we'll have a little dabble. We'll just see. Yeah. But it would be scary if you had to live there. It would be scary.
Yeah. So there's talk from the plumber that the radiator stopped coming off. Possibly, I can't remember if they said this or not, about the cuneiform screws, which are like the Phillips screws with the cross on. He used those in an attempt to stop them being pulled off the wall, like they had mini crucifixes on.
Ah.
I know there was. As if that'd do it, yeah. I know there was talk online of, maybe this guy will just crap at his job. But no, he said, and he prided himself in saying he was a professional. I'm sure he knew what he was doing.
Yeah, devil's advocate, I would say I was a professional, even if I was shit, though. I wouldn't be like saying, you know what, I am pretty crap at putting radiators on.
Yeah, that's not my speciality.
Yeah, don't hire me for that. But yeah, no, he was adamant that he'd done it right, and he triple checked that it was right.
Yeah. They get the lawyer of Bill at the time, who was doing the legal battle with the electricity and stuff. So the lawyer's alive, and he says he was completely rational, was Bill, completely reasonable, believable, not a nut job.
Really?
He's just a regular guy, what trustworthy,
See, that backs up their case even more, really, doesn't it? That they're not just Fruit Loops.
Yeah. I mean, we've got nothing to put the family in any question mark. They seem completely on the up and up, don't they?
Yeah, and even hearing Liz talk, she sounds very logical, not. So it'd be interesting to know if they've had any experiences in other houses since they moved.
Yeah. So the last 3 minutes or so is interesting because they hear a piano tinkling upstairs, and Bill's like, Lawrence, baby's asleep, stop tinkling on piano. And they go up and they find a cat in the room, and it's like, oh, it's probably the cat. But then they see that the cover of the keys is down, so it can't be played with.
I'm out. That'd be up for sale.
I don't think that would bother me. I think that'd be, well, that's just me. I don't think that'd bother me. I'd be like, well done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, maybe. But would you want to live in that house? I'm not saying go there for a night. Would you want that to happen?
No,
no. If you want the piano playing at 2:00 in the morning, well done. No, you'd crap your pants.
Well, it's like when my TV used to come on in the middle of the night, really loud, and I'd think there were people downstairs, and I'd have to walk down on my own and do that Hollywood opening of the door to find nobody there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound like fun to me. It's just my worst.
Which is, I want my last point on this, because when they opened the bedroom door or whatever the room it was, the piano playing stopped abruptly. Now, I've seen videos on social media now where there's big knocking and they're filming it on the phone. Knocking coming from that cupboard, guys, really loud. And he walks over, undoes it, and it stops. Why would a ghost stop knocking? It's invisible. What are you going to see?
Yeah, I sometimes think this, like when I watch programs or you hear about things, it's almost like they're doing it for the attention, but then when you go to confront it, they kind of do a runner. They don't actually want to be confronted. It's like you only get to see them on their terms.
Yeah.
But
Well, what about the footsteps in York? We sat there hearing one and we all went, do, 3. Well, it just continued even though we were sort of staring at it.
But
yeah.
It's Sam.
Yeah.
I do think, I know obviously people watching this might not know everything about Sam, but he is one of a kind. He is, he performs when he wants to perform.
Yeah.
And when he wants to perform, he does.
Yeah. He does it good, yeah.
He does. Whereas, and again, like I said, we don't know where those steps were. So they could have been anywhere. Just because we heard them doesn't mean it was our eyes,
No. That's pretty much it for this episode. And I'm really enjoying the programme.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I think it's really makes me wanting to listen to the next one.
Yeah. Well, we can now. We can go both to the next episode. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Won't keep you any longer, and we'll see you on the next video.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.